75 years ago, on a gray morning off the coast of France, the largest amphibious invasion in history began. This was D-Day, the day the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy to begin the liberation of Western Europe. But the story of D-Day isn't just about one day. It's a tale of incredible planning, unimaginable bravery, and countless secrets. Let's dive into the untold stories of Operation Overlord. The first challenge was deception. The Allies knew that to succeed, they had to convince the Germans the invasion was happening somewhere else. This led to the creation of Operation Fortitude, one of the most brilliant and elaborate deceptions in military history. They built a phantom army, complete with inflatable tanks, fake landing craft, and plywood airplanes, all positioned in Kent, directly across from Pas-de-Calais. They even created a fictional commander for this phantom army, the famous General George S. Patton, whose reputation alone made the threat seem real. The Germans bought it, hook, line, and sinker. They kept their most powerful panzer divisions waiting for an attack that would never come, leaving Normandy dangerously underdefended. While the Germans were watching the wrong place, the real invasion force was gathering. Over 5,000 ships, 11,000 aircraft, and 156,000 men were assembled in southern England. The logistics were staggering. They had to transport everything from bullets and beans to tanks and bulldozers. Think about this. Every soldier carried about 68 pounds of equipment. That's like carrying a 10-year-old child on your back while running into enemy fire. The scale of this operation is almost impossible to comprehend. The night before the landings, the operation began with a silent assault. Over 13,000 paratroopers from the American 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions and the British 6th Airborne were dropped behind enemy lines. Their mission was chaos. They had to capture key bridges, destroy communication lines, and secure vital crossroads to prevent German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. For many, it was a terrifying leap into the unknown. Pilots struggled with heavy cloud cover and anti-aircraft fire, causing many paratroopers to be dropped far from their intended landing zones. Men were scattered all over the Norman countryside, often alone or in small groups. But this chaos actually worked in their favor. The Germans were getting reports of paratroopers everywhere, creating confusion and making it impossible for them to mount a coordinated response. Small groups of determined soldiers linked up and began achieving their objectives, one by one. Then, at dawn on June 6, 1944, the naval bombardment began. A deafening roar filled the air as thousands of shells rained down on the German defenses. From the sea, the young men in the landing craft watched the coastline erupt in fire and smoke. Many were seasick, terrified, but resolute. They were heading for 5 code-named beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Utah Beach on the western flank was the first to be assaulted, thanks to the paratroopers who had largely secured the causeways leading inland, and a fortunate navigational error that put the troops on a less defended section of the beach. The American 4th Infantry Division faced relatively light resistance. Within a few hours, they had secured the beachhead and were pushing inland, linking up with the paratroopers. It was a textbook success and a crucial anchor for the entire invasion. But just a few miles away, at Omaha Beach, a different story was unfolding. Omaha was a death trap. The pre-invasion bombardment had completely missed its targets, leaving the formidable German defenses intact. The experienced German 352nd Infantry Division was dug into fortified positions on high bluffs overlooking the beach. As the American landing craft dropped their ramps, the men were met with a storm of machine gun fire, mortar, and artillery. The first waves of soldiers were cut down in the water. The beach became a horrifying scene of chaos and death. Tanks meant to support the infantry were either sunk or knocked out. For hours, the survivors were pinned down behind the few available obstacles on the beach, the tide rising behind them. It seemed like the invasion at Omaha was on the brink of failure. But then, acts of incredible leadership and courage began to turn the tide. Officers and NCOs rallied the terrified men. "There are two kinds of people who are staying on this beach," yelled Colonel George Taylor, "the dead and those who are going to die. Now, let's get the hell out of here." Small groups of soldiers on their own initiative began to find weak points in the German defenses. They used Bangalore torpedoes' long pipes filled with explosive stew blast holes in the barbed wire and began a slow, bloody crawl up the bluffs. By the end of the day, after suffering over 2,400 casualties, the Americans had clawed a tenuous foothold on Omaha Beach. Their sheer grit and determination in the face of impossible odds saved the entire invasion plan. Further east, the British and Canadian forces were landing at Gold, Juno, and Sword Beaches. At Gold Beach, British forces faced strong resistance, but managed to push through and advance several miles inland, nearly reaching their objective of Bayeux on the first day. This was a critical success. At Juno Beach, the Canadians faced a rough start. High tide and underwater obstacles meant their landing was delayed, and they had to assault a heavily defended shoreline. The initial casualties were high, comparable to those at Omaha in the first hour. But the Canadians fought with incredible tenacity. They pushed through the defenses and advanced further inland than any other Allied force on DAD, despite facing two German panzer divisions. Their achievement is one of the most remarkable and often overlooked stories of June 6th. Finally, at Sword Beach, the easternmost landing site, British forces, along with French commandos, fought their way ashore. Their key objective was to link up with the British paratroopers who had famously captured the Pegasus Bridge in a daring glider assault the night before. After intense fighting to secure the beach, they began the push inland, repelling a German armored counterattack and eventually relieving the paratroopers, securing the eastern flank of the invasion. By the end of June 6th, the Allies had done it. They had breached Hitler's Atlantic Wall, but it came at a terrible cost. Over 4,400 Allied soldiers were killed on that single day, with thousands more wounded or missing. D-Day wasn't the end of the war, but it was the beginning of the end. It was a day when thousands of ordinary young men from farms in Iowa, factories in Manchester, and towns across the Allied world did something extraordinary. They faced down tyranny on the bloody sands of Normandy and fought for the freedom we enjoy today. Their courage changed the course of history. The story of D-Day is filled with countless tales of individual heroism, strategic genius, and immense sacrifice. From the codebreakers at Bletchley Park, who cracked German communications, to the French resistance fighters who sabotaged railways, to every single soldier who stormed those beaches, it was a collective effort of immense proportions. It serves as a powerful reminder of what can be achieved when people unite against a common foe. Thank you for joining me on this look back at the Normandy landings. The bravery displayed on that day should never be forgotten. If you found this story powerful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so others can learn about this pivotal moment in our history. See you next time.